And we are live. Okay, hey everyone, Joe here, and we are back with. I guess this is our fourth hangout, which will on the feed be episode number 85. And we got Brian getting out of his car. Yeah, we've got we've got what do we got? One, two, three, four, five of us here around this time, and this time we're going to chat about feelies and physical things and game boxes and game manuals and basically anything that is a real thing you can hold in your hand that comes with a game. So I guess just to get rolling, let's go around the room or our various cars and introduce ourselves. Chad will just talk a little bit about if you've got anything online, where to find you, all that noise. So I'll go by the order on my little screen here, which is different on everyone else's. So Brian, if you want to go first, if you're not too busy avoiding traffic.
No, I'm parked now.
Wonderful.
Yep, this is Brian. I go by HD Brian and everything, and same as always. So not much to say new.
All right, next up we've got Craig.
Hey everyone, I'm Craig. I tend to go by Wildman Cal, and I don't know, same old, like Brian says, nothing new. I'm an aged gamer who's been around for a long time.
That's why I'm excited to have you on this one, because there's some good stuff to talk about from the past. So next up we've got Martin.
Hey, I'm Martin from Texas, and I'm the youngest person here, I bet.
May well be awesome shirt, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Seems appropriate.
it is a nice shirt.
Very nice.
Yeah, and finally we have Tomer, who is also driving across the deserts of Israel.
Well, the whole country is a desert. So yeah, I'm Tomer Gabel from Israel. I'm your friendly neighborhood douchebag. Yeah, nothing new in my account either. So let's get it rolling.
All right, so I guess we want to talk about physical things. I guess the inspiration for this one was actually there was that article that I believe Craig you posted in the Facebook group a couple weeks back. That kind of was a gallery of some feelies and stuff and boxes and whatever, and it got me kind of thinking about all those cool little items that I used to have on my shelf that came with games and all that. So I don't know. I don't really have a structure for this. Anyone want to just start throwing some stuff out there? We can start chatting about it.
Well, I think from my perspective, the whole reason why I think I linked that article is just because I miss box software. Walking into a place and actually looking at a box and going, so this is what's going to be in it, or this is what's in the box. Now it's just, click, click, click. I've ordered it on Steam because it was $1.99, and I may or may not ever get around to playing it.
No,
yeah, it's true.
I know what you mean. I miss picking up a box and feeling the embossed art pop out.
Mm-hmm.
I miss that feeling.
Yeah, no, I totally do as well. It's kind of like, I think I mentioned it, I don't know if it was on that news show or a couple of shows in the past when I go on one of my little tangential rant things that I feel bad about doing after I do them. But
do more of those.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a lot of like, I always found it very exciting. Like there was that whole thing of, going to the store or going to wherever or, opening a gift and it being this box and opening it and seeing what was in it and leaping through things. And like I had kind of this whole like ceremony when I got a new game. I would open it and I would see what was in there, and I'd spend a lot of time before I even actually started installing the game or playing the game, reading through all that stuff. What about you guys?
Yeah. I never really got a chance to buy a lot of stuff. When I did, it was a long card ride home because we were out in the country. So whenever I'd get a new game, I'd spend the entire card ride reading the instruction manual. That was my favorite part, was opening the new game, taking the instruction manual, and reading it on the way home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my most vivid one. Oh, and one Christmas I got, this isn't a PC game, but one Christmas I got Rogue Squadron from my dad for the N64. But I didn't have my N64 with me because I was visiting him. So I just spent like the next week just poring over every little detail, every little picture of the instruction manual over and over again until I got home.
Awesome. Tomer, you had something?
Yeah, I actually had a very different experience. The whole unboxing thing was never a big deal for me. And also, I don't actually miss the shopping experience where you get to go into a store and browse and all that stuff. I don't actually miss it. I find the convenience and immediacy of modern day distribution channels to be way, way, way worth the price. But what I do miss, not getting too much into the topic of Feelies, but I miss the artistry that went into the boxes and the game manuals and that sort of thing. Now, I never actually read most of the manuals because I'm like the opposite of RTFM kind of guy. I like to just poke at things until they break and then whine about it and then figure it out. But I think one of the things that is missing is it's no longer necessary to have a very kind of creative and appealing, box art in order to sell a game. It just doesn't matter anymore. Whereas back in the day, I mean, if you consider even really, really old games like Atari games, for instance, like literally cartridges for the Atari, the games themselves tended to be so simplistic that a lot of times you could find in a particularly good box, you could find a lot of kind of creative vision in how the artist chose to portray the game on that particular box. So a lot of times it's actually, more impressive than the game in question. So that's one thing I'm really dreadfully missing about kind of modern day software. But the whole, unwrapping the box, reading manual stuff, that never resonated with me.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. Like, I guess it's kind of it's gone the same way as album covers, right? Like album covers used to be this incredible, resource of creativity and artistry and all that, and those have kind of gone the way of the dodo. And I think game boxes are now kind of the same way. As long as you have a cool video on Steam, then someone will buy your game.
Yeah, but see, that's where I think I differ. Is I still buy all my music via CD because I want liner notes. I want to look at the artwork, even though it's it's not like an album cover, but I want the artwork, and I can always rip it and make it my own when I want.
Mm-hmm.
So I still have a shelf of 1,000+ CDs.
Do CDs still do that? They haven't suffered the same decline of not caring about putting stuff in it?
No, believe it or not, they're still thick books, and you get everything that you would normally used to get.
Maybe for CDs, that's important to keeping CDs on a shelf, because people buy CDs a lot less because of the digital age. But maybe that's one thing that's keeping them on shelves. People like you who are willing to buy them still for that, the liner notes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Curious.
At the very least, lyrics come with CDs nowadays.
So I think it's a little bit different for CDs because the experience is very, very different. I mean, the one thing that's changed remarkably over the last 2 to 3 decades is that this whole concept of owning an album or owning a book, owning like the physical, visceral experience of owning something, putting it on a shelf, taking it down, dusting it, people are sort of highly nostalgic for. I think it was fundamental to the experience, because I've found that for me, I've been reading books more and more on a Kindle as opposed to proper paper books. I've found that there is zero difference in my experience of music whether I'm taking the CD off the shelf, and I do have a very substantial media collection, including hundreds, if not thousands, of CDs and games and movies and stuff. But the experience of owning them might be a little bit different. The experience of actually consuming that media actually feels the exact same to me. So I don't think I'm losing out on anything by not having the visceral part of the experience.
I'm kind of in between.
Oh, looks like we just lost Brian, so we'll get him back. And
interesting enough, what you just said about that, Tomer, about CDs and music. So both my kids are 14 and 12, and each of them have a Kindle, but they want their music. I mean, their books physical, and they want their music digital. Neither of them care about CDs, but when it comes to books, they don't want to read on the Kindles anymore. They want the physical book in their hand.
That's interesting.
And they're the young generation. They're the generation that should be all digital.
Exactly, yeah, and I think I'm sort of the same. Obviously, I'm older than they are.
So have you? Why? I'm really curious. Do you know why that they have that?
They like the feel of the book in their hand.
Yeah, I just read an article that that bookshops are making a comeback.
Yeah, and I think I've felt that like over the past little while because I got I have, I mean, they're back there. I got books, right? And I really enjoy reading them, and I got a Kindle, and I said, oh, this can be great and whatever. And I do read on my Kindle, but I definitely like the experience more of a physical book. And maybe, I don't know if it has to do with the form factor, that it's kind of it feels a bit awkward to hold, even if it's the right size, quote unquote, or just, I don't know, the weight of it, or the fact that there's nothing reflecting off the page, that it's a matte color, and I don't know. There's just something about it that is more natural, and I don't think it's like a learned behavior or anything like that. It just seems like it's a natural way for me to consume visual, to consume words through my eyes.
I have a distinct turning point where I went from loving physical media to now I'm all about digital, and that turning point is for children.
Mm-hmm.
They, younger children are very destructive. For example, I had a book, the sequel to Ender's Game, I borrowed from a friend, and she, not only did she love the book as in the words in the book, but she physically loved the book itself. I don't know if you guys have this experience where you've read a book, like one of your favorite books over and over again, that the actual physical copy you own becomes, something that the wear it gets on it is the sign of the love. And she actually told me this when she lent it to me, and I kept it in my drawer safe when I wasn't reading it. But, one day for some reason, some kid decided to get into my drawer and rip the cover off the book.
No!
And that's something that I could physically go buy, another $5 version of that book, but it doesn't have that physical love that she had, put into that book. So there's no way to replace that. And that's one example. Another example of getting rid of physical stuff was just slightly similar to what we're talking about, but me and the kids got into Skylanders back when that started several Christmases ago, and there was an ultra rare Skylander I happened to find, a all silver version that was selling on eBay for like $100, and I found it just on the rack for the normal $12.99, and I kept that in what I thought was a safe place, and then my at the time 3-year-old found it and thought it was a present because it wasn't opened yet, and she opened it, and it loses value when it's not mint in condition, in box. It's those moments where I was like, yeah, I'm totally done with this physical stuff. They also destroyed lots of discs and stuff. They'd want to play, Wii Sports, so they would take out my Zelda Twilight Princess, and they would just set it down, and then the dog would step on it and get kicked under the couch, and by the time I found it, it was all scratched up and just completely destroyed. So I'm like, you know what? Forget physical. I'm all digital now, and that way the kids just go on a menu and pick which game they want. And I do love the simplicity of it. It's probably added to my laziness and my fatness that I can now I've got Steam Link now, and I love that, where I can sit on a couch and play my PC games, but I can now just sit down on a couch and just scroll easily through my Steam list and pick which game I want and just play it casually and then jump to something else. And it's super easy, as opposed to back in the day. Even then I didn't like doing the switching. I would get the no CD key cracks and stuff like that. I didn't pirate my games, but with the no CD stuff, you could load the whole game on and not have to have the disc, which of course they were meant for pirating, but they worked good for laziness too,
Yeah, I know what that's like.
But I do have very strong memories of the Christmas, just like you were saying, Martin. You get a Christmas present, but you're at Grandma's house, and your computer's at home, so you read. And man, like you've talked about on several of your episodes, a lot of games had manuals that weren't just like install the game by going to the D drive or the A drive and whatever. They of course always had that, but then the manual is sometimes a story or like a flight manual or something that was as if it was tangible from the universe of the game, and so you could feel like the universe before you even got home from Grandma's house, and that alone is irreplaceable. That the new generation is never going to have that feel, because at least on games, even if you do buy a physical copy, it's a game disc and maybe a little flyer on the inside that's an advertisement or something, but there's no manual on any game I've seen physically. I mean, and they started doing that years ago, where they just stopped having manuals because they could just have it digital. Plus, nowadays, games for consoles, they all have such hand-holdy tutorials that you don't need a manual to tell you anything. It's all in the tutorial. I mean, I talked about that Zelda game. I mean, that opening tutorial section was like 3 hours long, and you had to herd goats. And why? Why am I herding goats? I just want to go to a dungeon.
Yeah,
we lost Homer now too. Hopefully he can get back as quick as I got back.
Yeah, I think he got home. So
Nintendo actually was heard about that complaint, and they were kind of embarrassed about it because they sat down and realized how long Skyward Sword has the longest time it takes to get to your first dungeon than any other Zelda game. So the next Zelda game that came out on the 3DS, A Link Between Worlds, almost immediately throws you into the action and it makes it open. Like there's hardly any tutorials, and I consider that to be one of the better Zelda games. Like it's my top.
I love that game.
I've heard so many good things about A Link Between Worlds. It's making me kind of want to get a 3DS just so I can play it.
You know, if you weren't so far away, I would totally let you borrow my 3DS to play because it is definitely a great game. But this is a PC podcast, and on the forums, people get mad at me for distracting off of the subject. But
no. This is the Hangout. So there's no rules. We talk about whatever. I love it. I mean, gaming is gaming, and I recently got my hands on a PS4, so I'm a little more in that world again. So, but no, you can love them both.
Actually, I somehow accidentally got all the modern consoles now, and I feel like that's almost a gluttony of gaming. I've got the Steam Link and PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, Wii U, all hooked up to the same TV.
I'm so hovering right over a Steam Link as well, because there's a bunch of games that I do want to play on the couch and that I do want to play with my wife, and she won't sit at the computer with me. But
Steam Link is great. The controller's the Steam controller is a little hard to get used to.
Yeah. But I figure I've also got a 360 controller, so I could just plug that in if I've got a wired 360 controller that I can plug in if I wanted to.
Works great, and the wireless receiver works good too. So.
Cool. Yeah. So I guess you were talking about some of the flight manuals and stuff, and obviously, for me the first thing that popped into my head when I settled on the topic was claw marks from Wing Commander 1.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of exactly what you're talking. And I've said it a bunch of times. That I used to keep it by my bed and I would read through it, and it's so in universe that it does teach you how to play the game and tell you what the controls are and all that, but it does it in this way that really brings you in, which I think is so cool. Do you guys play Wing Commander?
Yeah. Well, not with the Wing Commander. Well, my first memory of something like that was Carmen Sandiego. The first game came with their own atlas. I mean, it wasn't a real atlas, but it was the we're in the world of Carmen Sandiego atlas. And you needed that as their copy protection. You had to, you had to look things up in the atlas to properly play the game. But I didn't know as a kid that was copy protection. As a kid, I thought that was real-world immersion.
Right. And in a way, it was, right, to an extent.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking up things in this almanac to help me figure out where she went, because the clue was she was going to a place that had, whatever, the world's biggest something, and I had to flip through this almanac and figure out, which country or which city had this, this thing that she was interested in, to figure out where she was, and the memories of that was just, I had a blast doing that, and I didn't even realize I was learning something, and it sounds cheesy saying that, but that was a good learning. Now, it's more obvious you're learning things in these learning games, but some of these learning games, like Carmen Sandiego, immersed you very well and taught you what an almanac was.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Can anyone hear me?
Yep, we can hear you fine.
Oh, okay, so the microphone is back online then. Cool.
Yes.
Welcome home.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Well, there's going to be a cat walking across the camera in a second.
That's okay. Mine have been evacuated from the room, but you might hear them scratching at the door occasionally.
They're jealous.
They want to be on. They want to be on the show.
I've never. My favorite physical materials were never things that put me into the world. Because I actually never got one of those. I never got Wing Commander 1 boxed or anything. My favorite ones are the ones that. On top of how to play, like maybe 2/3 of them were story. And
that I love.
Yeah, Blizzard did that very well with Diablo 1 and StarCraft 1. I knew back and forth the entire story of StarCraft. I could recite the story of the the exile of the convicts from Earth and their ill-fated landings on another solar system, and then their creation of the Confederacy and stuff like that. I used to get really, really into it. And then Diablo 1, I didn't even know Diablo 1 had a story behind it until I took, like I said, took it off the shelf of my dad's computer and read it in the bathroom one day. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
look at all this, like, and now I know who King Leoric is. And
all those game manuals turned
Oh,
into
yeah.
all of these
Yeah, right?
novels,
Look at that.
Like, I got a whole whack of them.
Yeah. Oh, man, Christy Golden.
Yeah, no, Christy Golden's awesome. But I mean, and that's the thing that I find really cool when you really do a lot of world building like that. It creates, and I don't know, I'm this huge thing. I have this huge thing with world building and with existing, and maybe that's why I like Star Wars so much and why I like Warcraft so much and BattleTech so much, because it's not so much that there were these games and there were these movies and there were these things that kind of exist, but they put so much effort into the building of the world that I just want to know more about what's going on in that world, outside of the game or outside of the story or outside of the movie.
Well, you were talking about claw marks and being your favorite pack-in.
Mm-hmm.
Here's mine.
Oh, the Loom audio cassette.
I still have my audio cassette.
That is amazing, and that is in great condition.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything in the house that will actually. Oh yeah, I have a boombox somewhere, but yeah, this is the best feeling I ever got because I loved the backstory it told.
Mm-hmm.
That they spent time to put an audio drama together that I could listen to in my car on my Walkman.
Yeah, that's totally
it's
legit.
really, really well written and produced as well. Also, I'm curious because is this from the floppy version of the game?
No, this is from. I think this is from the CD because I still have this and I still have my book of patterns.
Aha.
So here's a curious anecdote with regards to Loom. In Israel, you actually had 3 versions of Loom. You had the English floppy version that was exceedingly rare. I don't think I've ever actually seen it. Then you had the Hebrew translated version of the floppy version of the game, which was quite an endeavor actually. It was very, very highly successful in Israel for obvious reasons.
And was that an official translation, or did some guy just do it?
No, it was an absolutely official translation. I don't know what sort of the business process behind it was, but no, it was absolutely an officially sanctioned version of the game. But oddly enough, it did come with a translated book of patterns, and I still have that version, by the way. But for some reason, that version did not come with any variant of the audio drama. Like not on cassette, not on CD, not on anything, which is strange. But then I bought, I think, pretty much the first CD game I ever bought was Loom, the CD version. That was the English version because obviously they never translated the talkie. That would have been way too expensive. But the version that I got came with a second CD that had the audio drama on it. So that's why I'm curious, because I know that at least in North America, even the CD versions usually came with the cassette audio drama, which seems a bit strange to me, but there you are.
Yeah, I
think it's because cassettes were more predominant.
Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Right?
My theory was that I think it's because cassette players were still a lot more common in cars and stuff like that, even though they were becoming predominant in computers and stuff. It was just, really expensive to have them in your cars at the time. So yeah, cassette was the preferred way, and that's how I listen to the cassettes. If it had come with a CD, I wouldn't be able to listen to it except for at my computer because that was the first CD player I had.
Well, I'm looking at the copyright on this tape right now, and it says 1989.
Right, so that's like kind of early days for CDs.
So this
Really?
Yeah, if it's 89 for this CD, then this must have come with the floppy version because I don't think the CD version had been produced yet. I don't think that was produced until 1990.
Yeah, I think that's right. So that makes sense, and I mean, like you guys said, that audio drama is so well done, and it's like what 10, 12? How long is it? 10, 12 minutes, something like that, or is it longer than that?
29:16 according to the tape.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was about the same version. I don't remember exactly, but it was roughly half an hour.
Okay.
And it was brilliant.
No, it's great, and it really brought you in, and I think especially with the disc version, because there was no voice, there's no voice work done on it. I think it really put you in because it gave all these people voices. Like, so when when people spoke in the game, your mind kind of gave them that voice, and I think that's a really cool kind of way to go about that. And I don't think anyone else really ever did that. Like, I think was Loom the only kind of game that came with any kind of audio?
No, definitely not.
I know the Command & Conquer games always came with a CD, starting with Tiberian Sun.
Well, yeah, but those tended to just have the soundtrack,
right?
Not even separately. It was just Redbook audio. I think what Joe meant, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, is some sort of ancillary content.
Yeah, like a supplemental audio production, shall we say.
So one example of that is actually the second game on my Feelies list that we can also circle back to in other contexts is The Seventh Guest, which it came on 2 CDs, and the second CD was also a game CD, but it had a pretty small amount of actual game content. So they used up what was, I think, around 40 or 50 minutes of audio left over on the space left over on the CD for both original content music that you didn't get in the game, like the 2 songs. One's called The Game, and the other is called Skeletons in My Closet. That plays really cool. And also a lot of kind of high-quality renditions of the MIDI soundtrack on the second CD that you can listen to. So that's one example. I'm pretty sure there are others.
My dad's copy came with a VHS.
Yes, that's separate. That's another aspect of the Seventh Guest that I wanted to mention. Is first off, it came in a box that was highly unusual. It was very, very thick. It looked like a book, or at least it was meant to look like a book. And when you open up the book, you get your game CDs and your manuals, but also you get this kind of depression in the box where lies a VHS tape, and that was actually sort of a making of featurette. I think it was about 30 minutes long of The Seventh Guest, and that I think might very well have been the first making of a computer game video ever actually recorded, let alone distributed with the game itself. And I thought that was brilliant because the game was so big, and obviously sometime during its production they knew it was going to be not only a hit, but it was going to be sort of a milestone in gaming. And whether or not you like the game, it is undeniable that it is a milestone in PC gaming.
Oh, absolutely.
I think one of the things that was interesting about the second CD for that one, or the videotape, is back then there were game studios were far and few between. So the amount of games that came out for a PC at that time wasn't like it was where there's 10 new games a week by different independent studios. So you had to have something that set your game apart from everybody else's. People are going to go spend $50 on a game. You want to make sure that your game is the one that they get.
Yeah. Can I ask a question? How did you guys know about that on the second CD? And I'm asking because I still have my CDs, but it's in one of those jewel cases that just has 2 CDs in the jewel case. I don't think I got a box because mine was a pack-in, I believe, with my my multimedia kit that was basically just a audio card with a CD drive. But I still have the discs, and I didn't know this. Until right now, I had no idea there was anything else on that second disc. How'd you guys know?
Well, you've got something to do tonight.
Yeah, exactly. I kept it in my attic where it's safe for my children, too, so I'm going to have to dig that out.
In my case, finding out about it is very simple. Being as young as I was back at the time, I think it must have been 10 or ish. I basically tried everything I could with everything that I could get my hands on. One of the things that I would always do. As soon as I found out for the first time that data disks. Oh, there's trolls.
Trolls showed up! Yay!
And we're having a perfectly good podcast.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's
trolls,
what I do.
decided to unwind yourself and join us?
No, I just couldn't leave well enough alone. I just had to, quickly join in and say I miss you guys, and I'm sorry for not showing up at the correct time or not, I'm still not really feeling up to it, but I just wanted to, say I miss you guys, and I'm sorry for not being here.
Well, it wouldn't have been a UMB hangout without you.
Absolutely.
I didn't bring my swear jar either, so no, I've been tired as hell. But I just wanted to check in on what you guys were doing without me bad-mouthing me behind my back.
Only a little.
Are we going to get to see you throw up on camera?
Nice. Oh shit! There's a shadow in my face. Cool.
There you go.
We were just talking about the seventh guest has special material on the second disc that I didn't know about.
Yeah. So
the soundtrack. That was so weird that they put the entire soundtrack as a single audio track and not separated into different audio tracks.
In my version, I'm pretty confident. That it's a first pressing, and I'm pretty confident that it was split up into multiple tracks.
It's not on mine.
Obviously, but
No, I think I remember what Troll said. I think I remember being a single track.
It was. At least it is on my disc. I've got the disc out in my living room somewhere. I can go and get it, although you can't see that there's only one audio track.
But I have a copy of the soundtrack CD that was sold separately a couple years later by Team Fat and Fat Man.
The 7-Eleven thing?
What's that?
The 7-Eleven...
Yes, the 7-Eleven CD.
Yeah, it's for the uninitiated, it's called 7-Eleven because it's the seventh guest and its sequel, well, kind of the 11th hour. And 7-Eleven was a dual CD reissue of both soundtracks in remastered versions with a bit of extra content and stuff like that. It was cute. I mean, the soundtrack was pretty much the only thing that was even remotely half decent in the second game. So there you are.
Well, is it still recorded off the sound canvas, or did they re-record the whole thing?
I really can't recall.
I don't know. I'll go grab my CD and look at the liner notes while you guys continue to talk.
See, even all the more reason to have CDs with liner notes.
I can tell if it's still the Roland sound canvas from listening to the snare drum, because that is such a signature snare drum.
Yeah, and the shitty one.
I had a Roland sound canvas once, and it did a bunch of MIDI files, and they all sound completely awful. But even more so because of that stupid drum kit that's in the sound canvas.
Tomer, like you said, I've done the same thing where I put a lot of games in the CD player to see if they had audio on them. And I don't know, maybe it's because it was on a second disc, or I don't know how I didn't discover it on Seventh Guest, but like Quake, the first title track was pretty cool, and I was a Nine Inch Nails fan, but the rest of the Quake audio tracks were perfect audio for the game, but they were so ambient they weren't very good for listening to while you're driving around.
I recall Trent Reznor threw a little shit fit because it was marketed as a new Nine Inch Nails record on the disc, and he was like, "No,
no.
Did the soundtrack. It's not the Nine Inch Nails you know, but it is a very cool soundtrack. I'll give him that." And
the opening title song definitely sounded like Nine Inch Nails, but yeah, the rest of it was just really awesome ambient music that really worked great for Quake. Not so good for driving, like I said.
Well, he was drunk as hell, and they did ask him to come back to do Quake 2, but they wanted more, hopped up kind of rock thing, and he wasn't interested in doing that. He wanted to do more zoned out ambient stuff.
That's why the Quake 2 disc soundtrack wasn't that great, in my opinion. I mean, I remember popping that in expecting more Nine Inch Nails, and it was okay, but it wasn't the same.
Nails, yeah.
It was Sonic Mayhem, and he did fine. He obviously has never been near a real drum kit in his life, but he did his best.
And it's funny for me, my Quake soundtrack was, and this was like total happenstance and flukiness, was I can't remember which album it was, but it was an REM album because I had the first time I got my hands on Quake, it was pirated. I'm sorry, I bought it since then.
I think everybody pirated it back then.
Yeah, exactly. And I think all it would do would just randomly choose like a CD, or each level or whatever had a CD track.
Yeah.
So it would go to a CD track for whatever CD was in the CD player. And so, go ahead.
Go ahead, man. I didn't interrupt.
Oh,
I was going to say, for me, the CD was the Prodigy album that came out around that time that had, I think, Firestarter on it. And it's just weird that we each have these different albums in our head, is what album happened to be in our CD tray.
Brian, that is so uncanny. That is exactly my story. I had Fat of the Land in that disc player, and whenever you start up the first level, it goes straight to, what's that song called? But every time I hear that song, it just goes, oh, that's the Quake song. No, wait.
And that's my same experience. When I hear it, I think the same thing.
Same album with Diablo, and I kept hearing Narayan Fields from that.
Oh, yeah.
Superimposed on Diablo. I don't think I've heard the Diablo soundtrack for until years after. And whenever I hear that album, I think Diablo and vice versa, even to this day.
I can't tell you how happy this makes me to know that I'm not the only one who played games to Prodigy. Thank you, you guys. Thank you so much.
Oh, and the track was Minefields. It just occurred to me.
Yes, that's it.
Yes, Minefield. So now that we're on this, I did want to, at some point today, I wanted to talk about the Quake disc itself, because that's what, there's a few discs that I've held on to, and the reason why I've held on to the Quake disc is because it actually had on it, up until Quake, all the other games, Doom, Wolfenstein, Doom Expansions, Doom 2, on its original disc with the idea of you could call them and pay them money and they'd give you an unlock key. And, of course, that day and age we had the key code generators.
Right.
So the reason why I kept that game, because that was also, not only was that disc my Quake disc, it was my Wolfenstein disc, my Doom disc, my Doom 2 disc, my Doom Expansions disc.
Were they all on the disc? I didn't.
They were all full versions of it were on the disc with an unlock program that would generate a code, and then you would give that code to somebody over the phone, give them your credit card number, and they'd give you an unlock key that was custom to whatever code they gave you. And then the
way to get the code to get the actual data into your hands, so you wouldn't have to go out and buy it. You'd be like, oh, I like this game. Why don't I play the other stuff?
And unfortunately for them, it got cracked really quickly, the key gen, where you just punch in whatever code the program gave you and immediately gives you the unlock code. You punch that in, and it thinks you paid for it and would install whichever game you did. So that was unfortunate for a good idea turned bad, but that's why I kept that disc. That's one of my Feelies, I'd say, that we kept that I still have to this day.
Brian, I got to ask a follow-up question, though. Doom on CD? I mean, I've been playing Doom since forever. I don't think I've ever had a CD with Doom on it. Like, maybe share with me. Not a problem.
Yeah, it didn't run off the CD. You just installed it on your computer. So,
yeah.
Don't you generally just pirate it off of BBS or something? That's what all the cool kids did back in the day.
But this way you just had it. You didn't have to wait an hour to download the 1 meg.
Yeah, that was exactly the point. Is I just got to install it off the disc. It was great.
Oh,
but it was the same installer that I think. Oh, sorry, man.
Oh, no problem. I was just going to say, you guys were talking about Seventh Guest when I poked my head in. Did anyone mention the VHS tape that came in that box?
Yes.
Okay. Because it was not in the box that I bought, and I bought it from a legitimate software store in the U.S. around, circa 1997, 1998. And it had the CD, it had the manual. By the way, the thing about the soundtrack is actually in the manual, Brian.
Was it the opening book style box?
No, it was a standard standard box, but it's actually way taller than most game boxes, so it kind of sticks
up. That's your issue, though. I have both versions, in storage at my parents', and the reissue came without the VHS tape. I guess because the novelty wore off and it was too expensive to produce or something.
Well, I was producing this extra VHS tape, making these custom boxes for all this other stuff. So yeah, I imagine that was maybe a first run, or there wasn't really the concept of a special or collector's edition, but that's kind of maybe what they were getting
Still, it was 1998. This was before YouTube was invented, and I was just sitting there going, I got ripped off.
What were you saying about the manual?
Yeah, exactly.
Brian, you were saying?
Sorry, I think I'm.
Yeah, what were you saying about the manual? I didn't get the manual because mine was a pack-in with a multimedia kit. So all I got was the 2 discs in just a little jewel case. So I didn't even know about the content on the second disc.
Then it must have come as a surprise. But there's a spread in the manual, way at the end of the manual, that says, "Hey, pop in disc 2. Don't play track 1." But yeah, and it has a track list and everything.
It's
track 1 hurts.
because I would never have noticed it. Like, I don't generally read manuals, and moreover, the manual for the Seventh Guest was evidently so unremarkable, I have zero memory of it. It's like
I used to
lasting impression.
I used to read manuals on the crapper, and I still do. I still have my Space Quest manuals, my stuff like that, and I used to read them. Also, of interest was the Gabriel Knight manual, not because the manual itself is very interesting, but because Jane Jensen started at Sierra as a technical writer, so she wrote her own game manual, and for some reason I found that quite interesting. The manual itself is not very interesting.
And actually, if you're talking about Gabriel Knight, the other thing that I found interesting about the physical media of Gabriel Knight was I got the CD version, and that box was insane.
Yeah, it was huge for one.
Which one? The second one, The Beast Within?
No, the original game, like the box for the disc version was the standard Sierra big box, but the CD version was like these weird. It was like triangular. Like I don't know how to explain it. Like the bottom was triangular and the top was triangular, and they like fit into each other.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Wasn't that a special edition thing? Because I bought the CD version too, and it just came in a standard box.
It may have been, but I think because Gabriel Knight was another one of those games that I generally was never excited about games before they came out. The only two that I think I knew about before they released were X-Wing and Gabriel Knight. And Gabriel Knight, it was because one of my friends got Interaction, and there was a whole spread about Gabriel Knight before it came out, and I'm like, oh, Tim Curry's in it, and Mark Hamill, oh my god, because I'm a big Star Wars fan, was in it, so I was like, I gotta get this game, and it was a great game, but yeah, we got the CD version because we had just gotten, CD-ROMs around that time, and we wanted to hear the guys talk, because it was, these professional professional actors, not voice actors, but,
some of them were.
Yeah, some of them were. But we wanted Mark Hamill and Tim Curry. Not that Tim Curry's Gabriel voice was awesome, but
that actually reminds me. Going off topic here, I remember when they released the CD version of King's Quest VI, and it was a big thing that Robbie Benson was doing the voice of. Was it Prince Alexander?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that, and actually, and King's Quest VI was actually the first CD-ROM game I ever played. It was the first thing I got after I got my CD-ROM.
I remember they made a big stink, because I recently played Normality. Well, recently. It's quite a while ago, actually. But they made a big stink out of it when they released it in the U.S. because the entire voice cast was replaced with American actors, and they got Corey fucking Feldman in to voice the protagonist. Now, the British guy, I mean, it's a British game, and the British voice actor is annoying enough. And then they get Corey fucking Feldman. And I was like, oh dear. So the version you buy on GOG thankfully has the British voice cast. I don't know how to get I think there's a patch somewhere where you can download the American voice cast, but I have no intention of going through that fucking game anyway, so... Oh, Tomer, have a drink.
I wanted to ask about the Gabriel Knight box. I was really hoping that one of you guys would actually have that for like a show and tell, because I remember that box, and I really wanted to see it again. And haven't seen it. I'm sure I could look it up on the internet, but I was hoping one of you guys would have it to show. It sounds like nobody still has that.
I got rid of mine. The only one I have for Gabriel Knight is I have the Gabriel Knight collection with Sins of the Father and Beast Within, and I bought it because it came with A, the novelization of Sins of the Father, and B, it came with the soundtrack CD, which is so rare to find.
I love the artistic aspect of those boxes, but the organized freak of me hated how they didn't stack well on my shelf.
Oh, speaking of game boxes that don't stack well, I bought Tex Murphy Overseer in this weird box that had, the front cover of Overseer has this lighthouse in the background, and they put in a little LED bulb that blinked in the the top of the lighthouse. So the box actually ran on battery, and thankfully it ran out of battery at some point, probably when my kid brother sent it or something. But that thing would stand on my shelf, and not only was it too big and kind of it didn't fit in with the rest of the boxes on the shelf. It also would when you turned off the light, that thing would just sit there and blink. There was no way to turn it off. So that was annoying as hell, but
yeah. So for those of you watching the video version of this, I just screen shared the Gabriel Knight CD box. So yeah, that was always very memorable.
What the hell is that thing? It's like modern art or something.
It is crazy.
Awesome.
But yeah, the top piece comes out, and it kind of like it's straight on the bottom, but yeah, they kind of slide into each other, so you have to kind of dump all of the content of the box into the top piece upside down, and then kind of put the bottom piece on. So it was kind of weird and awkward, but it was cool. But yeah, like Brian said, it definitely didn't fit on my shelf properly, which kind of irritated
well,
me.
and besides not fitting on a shelf, it was a pain in the ass to get to open and get everything back in.
Yeah, because everything would just kind of dump out of it once you opened it.
The only dumber box I can think of is what's it called? Microcosm. Have you guys seen that? The Microcosm box, which is this big rectangular thing that doesn't fit, and it doesn't fit on a shelf anywhere. And the actual CD itself is in this little cutout in the middle of the box. So you have to basically put your fist through the box to get the CD out. And then the manual is sort of rolled up like a parchment and stuffed into the top of the box. There's this little compartment in the top of the cardboard that you can open and pull the manual out. And it's all curled up and squished because, yeah, that box is stupid as hell.
But that owning that version was worth it, because having that game on CD, it had the soundtrack on CD, and that was one of the great soundtracks from a really shitty game.
Yeah, the game itself was awful.
But the music is phenomenal.
I mean, you think Rebel Assault is a shit game, and Joe, it is.
I agree. I agree.
But Microcosm was actually worse. Yeah, let's all pick on Rebel Assault.
I played Microcosm on the Sega CD, so it didn't have a fancy box.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a picture of it, but I'm not able to. So they're all just like standard box shots.
You guys can go and Google the Spoony one, the video reviewer. He did a review on Microcosm, and he goes into great pains and details about the box itself.
If you search for Microcosm PC box, I found it.
Oh, okay. Here, let's see if I can pull that up. Because I don't usually do video, so we can use the use the medium.
And everyone else is just quiet and anxious and waiting for Joe.
Keep talking, everybody.
So it looks like looks like it's square, but it's got an opening in the middle or something. Is that what it was?
Yeah, exactly. It has this little cutout in the middle, and it's just dumb. No one thought this through.
No, the reason why I was looking up my rip of Microcosm Suite, and I remember why I liked it. The music is done by Rick Wakeman of Yes.
Oh, cool.
Jeez. Why would he put his name on such a shit? Oh, wait, Brian May and Rise of the Robots. Never mind.
It was Psygnosis. I mean, they're a European company, so they were at that point they were the high end. Do you remember all the cool stuff, Shadow of the Beast, and all the other things that they did? So at the time they had money.
I remember Lemmings. That was probably Lemmings' money that got Rick Wakeman in. Joe just found the Microcosm
so
box.
there we go.
Yep.
So here's the little cutout in the middle where the disc goes. Well, yeah, it's definitely interesting.
It's stupid.
Is one way of putting it. What the fuck am I looking at is another way of putting it.
Yeah, that's also a possibility.
And you can't really tell from the screen, but yeah, that bit in the middle, that's the actual CD, and you can't just get your fingers in. You have to physically punch to get the CD out. You have to physically put your fist through it.
So do you guys remember when you'd get a new game? So this is a little bit later, when you'd get a new game on CD and you'd open up the jewel case, and you'd try and take the CD out, and the jewel case would be so tight that you'd basically almost have to break the CD in half to get it out. I was always terrified. I'd just snap the thing in half.
Oh, I did that tons of times.
Every time. And because
I was always afraid too.
It was so rare to get the game. I was just, the pressure was doubled. It's like, here I am trying to pull StarCraft out, and it bends almost 90 degrees just to get it out.
And you're like, oh!
Yeah, I'm 11 years old. I don't know what to do.
Did anyone ever have one actually break, though?
No.
The only thing that was worse than those tight ass jewel cases was the early LucasArts CD-ROM games, which didn't come in jewel cases. They came in these weird cardboard foldings that would scratch the hell out of your CD. So my dad actually cut those into pieces and put them into jewel cases so the CDs would survive.
Rebel Assault came in one of those. That was shit.
Yeah, it was like
a
shit game as well.
Doesn't matter if you scratch the Rebel Assault disc. It's okay.
No, that's no good. I mean, it's gonna play the same regardless.
Yeah.
Oh God, bastards. I'm gonna get Rebel Assault. I'm gonna stream myself. I'm gonna school all of you guys.
Do it, because if you're good at Rebel Assault, you should join like MLG or something and win $1 million.
It was so painful to watch you do the asteroid field because you don't turn. You just
Marcus, I'm gonna
you don't turn, and you don't realize that you're on this pan, and it's just.
Dude, you're not impressing anyone by being good at Rebel Assault. Saying that you're good at Rebel Assault is like saying I'm good at doing taxes. Well, great, fuck you.
I'm gonna get myself a job at Google, specifically at YouTube, just so I can invent a freaking algorithm that whenever it detects Rebel Assault, it at the person's house or something. I don't know. That game deserves to be wiped out of history.
You guys
Craig, what do you got, Craig? Craig's got a thing.
Too harsh.
Well, so since we're talking about pack-ins, I pulled out you can see this. This is the collector's edition of Neverwinter Nights.
Yes, sir.
Like with that shiny embossed boobies.
Well, so I still have the T-shirt sealed in its package.
Awesome.
There's the cloth map, and then there's the Art of Neverwinter Nights book in here. So that was one that's really cool. One of these days, I might actually have to crack open this thing and see what size this T-shirt is and if I actually fit in it.
Oh, don't leave it for your kids. Like
it's for gamers. It's probably like
a T-shirt.
It's for gamers. It's probably like a 3XL.
But and then here's another one I pulled out. Have you ever played Ultima 9?
I have not played any Ultima, and I'm sad.
Neither have I.
I have not played any Ultima, and I'm glad because I suck at RPGs.
The in-game material, the inbox material was useless and didn't represent the actual game? Or is that a different Ultima?
That might be a different Ultima.
I think it might have been 7.
But this one is tons of this has got tons of pack-ins, including tarot cards. And we all know what Ultima is always famous for. Its cloth maps.
Yep, that is so cool.
What else did this one have? This one had fake leather manuals.
Oh, nice.
And then it had another thing that Ultima was always famous for was an Ankh keychain, or an Ankh thing that you could add to a necklace.
Boy, they went all out.
Yeah, I mean, it almost makes you wonder because, this stuff isn't inconsequential in cost to produce, right? And did these games cost more than other games? I don't think so.
Yeah, and it also came with a print of the box. The box. Well, they do.
Sure they cost more.
You have to remember that $60 for a PC game back in 1990 was maybe almost $100 today.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a big investment, and like Craig said, you had to make it so that someone spent their $60 that they might, buy 1 or 2 games a year, or 3 games a year or whatever. They'd spend it on your game.
Well, so one of the things I always do is every time Blizzard releases a collector's edition of any of the World of Warcraft expansions, I buy it. So I have every collector's edition from the World of Warcraft expansions, and I do it for one reason and one reason only. It comes with a soundtrack CD.
Yes.
And like you, Joe, I'm a big fan of game music, so I have to have the CD version of it because I'm anal that way.
Well, if you don't want the keys, you can give me the keys so I can get the pets.
No, I use those too, but I mean, it's all about I like the fact that they have a collector's edition where I can get a soundtrack and there's a mouse pad and there's an art book, but I always get the collector's edition because of the music.
I just remember I had a big bag of game boxes under my bed. And
Sitting there.
I'm trying to pull them out, see if any of them are interesting, and none of them really are, except for this gigantic Black Dahlia box. I'm gonna hold it up to a game that's similar. I mean,
it's a normal size.
Phantasmagoria box, and that's the Black Dahlia box. It's insane, but it's got 8 CDs in it, so.
I'm trying to think, and I'm not there were pack-ins and stuff in Sierra games, but not that much really. If I'm trying to remember.
On which game and which version? The Leisure Suit Larry collection was chock full of stuff.
Mm-hmm. I remember Larry 5 having some unique manuals.
Oh, I gotta grab my Larry box. Hold on.
There we go.
Oh wait, actually, I found my Seventh Guest box, and it's the size of Black Dahlia.
Mm-hmm. I can tell right away that's their issue.
Yeah.
It's a smaller box. It's not book-shaped. It doesn't have the VHS tape. Same game, but I think the the reissued box is actually, I don't know. I find it ugly, but like I said, I have both.
It's ugly sin. Also,
Which
it has
ones?
quotes across the back of Stauf's head that says the best-selling CD game. So obviously it's a re-release. They couldn't put best-selling CD game on the first edition.
They could just assume.
Yeah, because no one else was doing CD games at the time.
It's like when they print T-shirts for both teams in the final of whatever, you know.
Oh,
The world's best full-motion video game.
Oh yeah,
That would be
somewhere
this one.
I still have that one, Trolls.
Trolls, I'm
It's
surprised you
lovely.
do have that one, considering how much you love it.
It's actually not mine. I stole it, or actually, a friend of mine gave me all of his old game boxes, including this one, which is out on iOS and Android.
And a remaster is supposed to be coming out. That's going to be the next thing from what are those?
Remaster
like
of
that,
I
yeah.
Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Does that mean that characters will actually do what you tell them to this time? I mean, in the original, they moonwalk all over the place, and the hit detection is terrible, or hit detection. I mean, the pathfinding is terrible, and all that shit.
I guess we'll see. Maybe they want to maintain the original frustrating. Oh, Dot.
First ever game box I ever bought. It is absolutely busted to shit. There's sellotape, or what's it called, sticky tape on the sides of it. But this thing came with a free hint book.
Oh, you mean this one right here?
That would be it. See,
I had that at one
actually-
point too.
I can't even get this thing open.
And I remember the LucasArts hint books were like they were like very weirdly shaped. They were very tall and narrow.
Yes.
Yeah. So is the game manual.
So, in the spirit of one-upmanship, I mean, I can't show it to you because it's at my parents', but one game that I have to add to the mix that also had a bunch of Feelies kind of included in it is Star Control 2, which actually came with this, at least the original version, actually came with this humongoid map of hyperspace in the game that was combination copy protection and just a really, really cool map you can hang on a wall or something.
For a second, I thought you said mongoloids. I was like, what the hell is that?
Well,
Mentally challenged, man.
Well, I was trying to show you guys. Here's my copy of Larry 6. I don't know if you can see.
Oh, look at that!
Nice one.
But
Awesome.
it's personally autographed from Al Lowe.
And how did you get that done?
Wow.
So when I told you guys, I think last Hangout when I worked for Creative Labs, I met Al at a trade show, and I offered to send him a sound card, and he asked what I wanted in exchange, and I said, how about you send me a copy of Larry with my your signature on it? So he did.
He's like, sure, I got a pile of these.
That's great.
I got something rare. I got Space Quest 6 signed by Scott Murphy, even though he desperately wants to forget that game.
Yeah, well, they just need to keep working on their current game.
I have a copy of Star Fox for the Super Nintendo signed by Miyamoto, personalized for me.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, that wins. That wins.
I don't have it on me. It's in New Jersey, but it's on my Facebook. It's actually, I bragged about it on 4chan. And
how did that go?
Kotaku, people went crazy over it, and the Kotaku wanted to talk to me about it, so I sent them all the information. So now there's a Kotaku article about my cartridge got signed, but they twisted it because they're Kotaku. And the thing is that I sent a letter to Miyamoto out of the blue with just like it was like some weird like thank you letter for helping me get through some hard times, and I didn't think anything would come with it. And I put my cartridge of Star Fox in there, my childhood cartridge, and just sent it away because I was trying to like grow up at the time. I was going through some stuff, you know how it is growing up, and I just kind of forgot about it. And about 4 months later, the cartridge comes back to me, and it's like, Miyamoto, you know, thanks you for sending a letter, and he couldn't play your game because he doesn't own a Super Nintendo, but he signed it for you, and I hope you enjoy it. I'm like, what the hell?
This is awesome.
This is
Regions
great.
and shit.
Yeah. And so Kotaku ran an article that read, Miyamoto doesn't own a Super Nintendo.
It's like, of course, it's like because that's totally the point of this.
That's the point of it, right? So good. Like I can link it to you if you want to see it.
Sure.
That is ethics in games journalism right there.
Right?
Boom!
Boom.
I'll go boom, but
Awesome.
I think we're past that joke at this point.
Nah, it never ends.
I think you lost the right to use that joke after the first season of
There it is.
And then we went straight into the first season of Open Crowdsource. It was that Lost Prophets lead singer / pedophile. He was our running joke, and now the joke is that Gareth hates everything, or has to play.
Because he does.
But why is that a joke?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Why is that a joke, though?
Well, it's not really. It's the truth, but we'd laugh about it anyway.
Well, anyway. So who's up next with another entry into the Feely thing?
Well, dear lads, I think I'm going to call this one in. I'm just going to go and because I haven't eaten all day, and so I should probably go and do that. It's I think it's about 8 o'clock.
If you want to feel better,
you
got to eat something, trolls.
Yes,
gotta eat, yeah.
Way over it.
But thank you guys for indulging me on my shitty connection phone thing here. So
actually, it's been the most solid you've ever been.
Yay! I'm not drunk. That must be it. I'm
also
hungover instead.
Well, in honor of you joining us, let me just, part with these words with you and say fuck, 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 fuck.
I'll drain the rest of my beer for that.
Yeah. Troll, before you go, I think there's one item on my list that are we limiting ourselves to PC games?
No.
Okay, so I have one item on my list that I feel trolls would particularly enjoy. So some of you might have played a Dreamcast and subsequently released on PlayStation 2 game called Rez. It's pretty famous for being it's a rail shooter. It's very unique. It's inspired by the art of Kandinsky. It's also a really, really good game, well written and interesting and blah, blah, blah. That's not the interesting point. The interesting point is that it came with an attachment, an optional attachment that you could buy separately that's literally called the Res Trans Vibrator.
Okay.
Now, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take this link, post it on the chat, and just wait to see your faces.
I can't actually open the chat from here, I think.
Well, in that case, let me just email you the link because I feel that it's going to be worth it.
Oh, my. Oh, wow.
Okay.
I'm glad I'm not at work.
And I have it. And yes, I've tested it. And
Wow.
How did you test it?
that is all I'm going to say.
Oh.
Did you send it? I can't see it.
I emailed it to you, so you should probably have it in like a few seconds.
Okay.
For some reason, I feel blessed that I can't see it.
Let's just say it does what you think it would do.
I sent it to your Playmert. How do you pronounce your last name anyway? .dk address.
Plymert.
Plymert. So I sent it to your at Plymert.
Someone is actually using it for. Is that what it's for? Yeah, that must be what it's for. Oh, nice.
It's exactly what you think you would use a vibrator to do if you were a lady.
Massage your back, right?
This is almost as stupid as that person who invented a speaker that you insert into the vagina to play music to your fetus. Someone did that. I'm not making that up.
Yeah,
that was at CES this year.
There's more body tissue in the way than through the vagina if you just put the headphones over the belly, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like it has to do more work. It has to travel more distance.
Once it actually gets to the fetus, it's just like whale song.
Oh my God.
Tomer, thank you so much for ending this on a pussy joke.
Exactly.
Hey, there was no joke involved, but regardless, I mean, yeah, I think this gives a very new definition to the word Feely.
Yeah. I think you might actually win with that one. That is most definitely a Feely.
Welcome
Drop
to
the mic.
After Dark. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a few other ones, but this is undoubtedly the most I don't know, esoteric one.
All right. So I'm gonna take off. Thanks again, guys. That was
Well, thanks for
that was a
dropping in,
blast.
Trolls.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, next time I'm there for the duration, guys.
Yes, sir.
Next time we're getting drunk again, yes?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll see you
Cheers.
guys.
Boom.
Boom.
All right, so what else we got?
Go ahead, Brian.
No, I was one of the things I really enjoyed about Command & Conquer is that when you bought the game, it came with a really nice tech tree, and I would used to hang up the tech trees in my room.
Mm-hmm.
And in Command & Conquer Red Alert 2 in the special edition, it came. I was so mad about this, but there was two. You got a random pewter figure. You could either get the Tulsa Trooper, which I got, or the Chrono Legionnaire, and I was mad that I couldn't have both. And it also had like a really cool like bendable, like it was like you could fold it to like a triangle or like what's it called? It was like a prism, and it had different tactics for each side that you would play as. So you would have you would have like a one that was computer commands, and you had Soviet and Allies, and like different sub-factions and some different combos that you could use.
That's really cool.
Yeah, did you not know that about the computer figures for Red Alert?
No, I didn't know that.
No, was it Red Alert? They also did it for
Red Alert
Tiberian
Sun?
Dawn. No, Tiberian Sun. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There was a pewter figure. You either had one or the other. One faction, GDI or Nod.
Yeah, I remember those. Those are actually super rare because they didn't do it as much as they did this on Red Alert 2. I never got a chance to get a hold of any of those.
I don't know if I still have my copy of that.
I mean, you could get both of them if you wanted to. You just had to buy multiple copies of the game.
Correct.
Yeah, and the thing is that I didn't take care of my boxes as a kid. Like I tore them up, and I didn't literally tore them, but I just threw them around and didn't take care of them. But I wish I had, because the Red Alert 2 Special Edition box had the Twin Towers on fire. And
oh wow!
Red Alert 2 came out a month before September 11th happened.
Yeah, you know they would have edited that had it come out a little bit
No,
after.
they did. They had to pull back boxes and do a second re-release.
Oh wow!
Of the initial orders. So the Twin Tower box is actually really rare, and I had it.
Yeah, and I mean, and I was such a huge fan of stuff like poster type stuff, you know, like either the tech tree or like, you know, I think I've said it 100 times. I had the Wing Commander one, blueprints on my wall because those were incredible. And I've mentioned it, but I have to thank Brian Demodulated again for basically giving me a box copy of Wing Commander 1, which is ridiculous. And I'm just like, I go in there and somehow I pop it open and I'm like, oh.
Was it factory sealed?
It wasn't factory sealed, but it is in amazing condition.
Wow.
So I just put up a picture. I don't know if any of you can see it. This wasn't a pack-in per se, but if you played Ultima Underworld and you finished the game at the very end, you could write in to the company and they would send you this certificate letting you know that you had completed the game and saved the princess. And I still have my certificate.
I got it up here.
Awesome.
I can show it.
That reminds me of something that I discovered as an adult. There was a Super Nintendo game called F-15 Strike Eagle.
Mm-hmm.
It's by Microprose. I'm not sure how much it has in similar to the other F-15 games that they did on the PC. Oh, that's so cool, dude. That is legit.
Joe, can you pop that up? I can't see it very well.
There we go. I don't know if you can. It's on. I'm sharing it on the contraption there.
Is it like is that handwritten? And they actually had to write
they handwrite your name in. I'm not seeing it, Joe. I don't know why it's not showing up.
Oh, one sec. Let me make sure I'm doing this right.
I saw it.
Says I'm screen sharing. So, anyways.
Anyway, what I was saying is at the very end when you beat the game, which was a terrible climax, it just ends. As a child, I couldn't beat it, and as an adult, I was like, I'm going to beat this game, and I did it. At the very end, there's a giant screen that says, "Congratulations, you beat F-15 Strike Eagle." Write into this address with the code word, whatever, and we'll send you a F-15 technical manual for if you include $5 or whatever. I was like, oh, that's so cool, but it's like 2009, and not the address is worthless to me now, and I wish I'd known as a child.
Oh, that's like, what was it? I can't remember. Was it Lazy Game Reviews that did the Red Baron pizza coupon that came in Red Baron, and he went and and I think he actually was able to get like the whatever it was $1 off of a Red Baron pizza. That's 20 years after the game came out or something.
They did something similar to a factory sealed Ninja Turtles VHS. Where it came with a bunch of Pizza Hut coupons, and the manager, they recorded themselves going in, and the manager honored them, even though they were like 20 years out of expiration.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, if they don't have, well, because I think this one didn't actually have an expiration date on it, so that's why they had to. That's why they had to honor it. I mean, really, it was like a $1 off, like a $3 like frozen pizza. So who cares? But.
That's great, dude.
And I know I want to bring up, again, because I'm a ridiculous Star Wars fan, X-Wing and TIE Fighter. The collector's editions came with... the Farlander papers and I can never say, I don't know if it's the Steel or the Stelle Chronicles.
It's Steel.
Yeah, is it?
Steel.
Yeah, and so yeah, those are really great, and those stories are actually reproduced and then extended in the strategy guides.
Mm-hmm.
So those are awesome. I actually have I have to go downstairs in the basement and get them, but I have both of the strategy guides, and they're actually fun. You know, basically every once in a while I'll read through them. I'll skip like the actual mission. You know, the mission after action reports, but all the stuff in between where it's like, oh, and, you know, like Kean Farlander is like figuring out that he has force powers and he like doesn't like Luke Skywalker. And
yeah, man, I was super into reading those books because, again, when I was a kid, my dad had given me all of his X-Wing diskettes because he had made copies for himself, but my sister had lost a manual, so I couldn't get past the copy protection. So
you must register.
Right. So I thought I could kind of steal my dad's X-Wing strategy guide, but at the time I didn't know that was the CD version, so I didn't have any of the stuff that I needed to get through the copy protection, and I never I don't know. I had internet, but it never went through my head that in 1995 you can go on the internet and find your copy protection.
You could Alta Vista it or Lycos it.
Alta Vista. I haven't heard that one in a million years. Holy smokes! So yeah, it just never occurred to me that I could have just looked up the DRM stuff as a kid.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like it's just crazy stuff.
Fun fact for Kean Farlander and Merrick Steele. I am an avid player of the X-Wing tabletop miniatures game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a miniatures game that has to deal with the starfighters. It's really fun. But Kean Farlander and Merrick Steele both have an appearance in that game as pilots.
Oh, that's great.
Mm-hmm. And so does Azamon from Alliance.
My project for tomorrow is to build this thing.
All right.
So. Yeah, I've been wanting to get into that tabletop game, if only for the miniatures, because they look like they're very very well done.
They're well painted. I haven't had a single issue with any of them. I've spent way more than enough money. I have one of each ship right now, even the larger ones, and I play very avidly.
Oh, that's super super cool. So who else has got stuff? I got a couple more, but we can throw some of you guys in there.
Once my kids are all moved out, then I'll get into those tabletop games that require miniatures.
Or at least once they're old enough to not eat them.
Oh.
And you know what? Even my 11-year-old still likes to take cool things and play with them and take them to school to show, look what my dad has, and then it never comes back.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, look what my dad doesn't have anymore.
Exactly. So what else you got?
Anyone? Or I can do another one.
I could go next if no one has something on their plate.
Yep, go for it.
All right, so I have a few. I'll start with one. So there's the original CD release of Dune, as in the adventure game from Cryo.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's, at least with the CD version, I've never actually seen a boxed floppy version, so I couldn't say if there's anything different there. But the CD version came in a strange box that sort of, you know those kind of cardboard cutouts that when you unfold, they open up and become this 3D whatever it is that they're built to resemble. So that particular game actually came out in a box that, when unfolded, becomes this sort of desert landscape with a sandworm popping out of it, and I thought that was actually pretty cool for the time.
Oh, that is cool.
Are you talking like it's like a pop-up book like they have for toddlers, but like?
Yes, I think so.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty awesome back in the day. It was also pretty original. I don't think I've seen that particular thing before, but that was actually only one of the two things that was truly awesome about that particular release. The second is that I don't think this was a tie-in. I think this was released separately along with the game, but the game's soundtrack, which is colloquially known as Dune: A Spice Opera, was released as a full-blown CD album by a label called Exos, EXXOS. Now, Exos is actually evidently the original name of Cryo Entertainment, which is the developer, the company that developed the game. So there's several things you can say about the soundtrack, which was written by Stefan Peek and Philip Ulrich, and I'm probably mangling their names badly because they're...
sounds accurate enough.
Okay. So first off, it's probably one of the best game soundtracks, I feel at least, that I've ever heard. And the original ad-lib version from the PC version is still widely considered to be quite possibly the best soundtrack ever written for FM synthesis sound cards or OPL 2 or 3 based sound cards.
Yeah, it's amazing.
The CD rendition, I thought, was not only just really fantastic sounding in its own right. It's also one of the first examples of a game soundtrack being separately released, and also it's not just a recording or rendition of the original soundtrack. It's actually a full-blown, kind of sequenced synthesizer-based soundtrack that I at least find fantastic. And for years and years, it was a highly sought-after and exceedingly rare collector's item, and it still is in a sense. But
I'm still looking for that CD. I can't find it.
So two interesting things that happened sort of in the interim. The first is that I think circa 2002 or 2003, something like that, Stefan Peek, I wouldn't want to do anything, but he sort of posted in response to someone asking a question on a forum somewhere, he posted that the game soundtrack, this will never be reprinted. It was pretty unusual to begin with, and it's not likely to ever get reissued. But internet piracy being what it is, I have the feeling that MP3 versions of the soundtrack will be, will be able to be found. You'll be able to find them sometime soon. And sure enough, within about a week, you could actually find MP3 rips of the soundtrack, albeit at pretty low quality. But I was simply blown away because it was the first time I'd ever listened to the full-blown soundtrack, which I thought was a really cool gesture on Stefan's part. So you can actually find this album for listening online pretty easily. I think it's even up on YouTube.
Oh yeah. That's where I got it. From when I played a little bit of it on the show. I just grabbed it from YouTube.
Yeah, I have a rip of it in the highest you can do for an MP3.
Yeah. So I'll save the second anecdote for when I come back in about half a minute. So someone else pick up the slack. I'll be right back.
So I got one.
Sure, go.
I've seen reference on that it was on the PC, but everybody knows it's for Xbox. Have you heard of Steel Battalion?
Yes.
I mean, you could call this a Feely. You had to play with this controller that had over 40 buttons.
Oh yeah, that thing's crazy. I gotta find a picture of that.
I thought that was 200 buttons.
Because
maybe because they count every toggle as a different button.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I think
this thing
physically,
is...
yeah, it's a beast, with pedals and everything, and two joysticks and a center console.
People still buy the Steel Battalion controller and adapt it for PC use using adapters because it's just one of the most robust control systems around. A travesty, though, is that the sequel to Steel Battalion was a strictly Connect-only game.
Don't talk about it, man. It's so bad.
So they went from one spectrum to the other.
It's like just total... Yeah, there we go.
One of those buttons turns on your windshield wiper.
Oh my.
That's how ridiculous this game was.
Like, that's insane. I know a lot of people take this and they try and adapt it for use with, like, a lot of mech games, like MechWarrior Online and stuff like that. Like, they'll use this. And yeah, it's just great.
That isn't... Technically, that's not an accessory. That's a pack-in because you needed that to play the game, and the game came with that. As opposed to other, like a Wingman controller or something like that as an accessory.
They would just make it more fun or whatever.
Yeah, this was for the game, needed for the game. You bought them together. You didn't buy them separately. It came in the box, and it's hard to find the game at stores because they wouldn't carry more than like 3 copies because it would take up the entire aisle of Walmart to carry enough copies to keep in stock.
So would the game actually like not be playable without this? Like the game wouldn't start?
The game,
Nope.
You can't even turn on your mech without the thing.
There's literally a start button
Yeah.
to turn on the mech. So yeah.
That is super cool. I mean, yeah. Because I know every once in a while I look into like crazy control schemes and like for mech games and like Euro Truck Simulator and
From what I understand, the game doesn't have any LAN support, but it had Xbox Live support.
Huh.
So you can't really play anything but the single player campaign now.
People have done hacks around where you network it to your PC and hack a fake Xbox Live hack, but it's very hard to play that. Multiplayer now.
Yeah, that reminds me of the Warp Pipe project for Nintendo GameCube, where they tried to get the Mario Kart working over a network over the internet.
Yep, and it did work. I got it working once.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, awesome. So that to me is the biggest that I personally had my hands on. That's a pack-in,
It's like the ultimate Feely.
Well, I'll take that back. Because there is you could count the Rock Band set. That's a big box too. So.
Yeah, but I feel like this is way cooler than that.
Oh yeah, especially for our group.
Yeah. And
yes, to be clear, it's not too hard at all to emulate that on a PC. There's an adapter, I think, is like $15 an Xbox One, Xbox original to
Xbox
to USB.
Number one.
Yeah, an Xbox original to controller port to USB port. I think like $10-15 on Amazon. So if you could get your hands on that controller, you could use it for anything.
Yeah, I remember a big deal in kind of the MechWarrior Online forums, but before the game actually came out, that people were adapting the Steel Battalion controller to use for that game. And I could see, because I find the biggest issue for me in like mech games was always the torso twisting, and that you if you didn't do it, you weren't going to win anything, but it was always very awkward to do if you were using like just a keyboard kind of a thing. Or a joystick that didn't have, back in the day, you didn't have the twist action.
As a games tech, I got to work on and play quite often. I can't remember which mech game came in it, but it was a big yellow bubble game you would sit in, and it had full controls for mech. It also had Crimson Skies, I think, was the flight game.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole bubble would move as you would move, but it had great controls that unfortunately broke all the time because they just weren't built for Chuck E. Cheese's audience to be climbing all up in this thing. But that was the best way to play a mech game, in my opinion, was sitting in the bubble and having it move and twist and turn as you were navigating around with your mech. It was awesome.
Oh yeah, having the full motion simulator kind of experience.
The only problem is that it was such a dumbed-down version to be a more arcadey and fit more in the Chuck E. Cheese environment, that it wasn't a very complex mech game.
Yeah, I feel bad I never got the chance to play those, I can't remember the name of them, but, the networked BattleTech pods back in the day.
And it's incredibly rare to find them in arcades now because the controls broke all the time, and the mechanisms for this one, the sumo ones, broke to move the actual pods. So.
Oh yeah, I can imagine that those would break the hydraulics or whatever it is they use to move the actual pods would break all the time.
He used very expensive motors, 6 very expensive motors, and each very expensive motor had a very expensive control box. That is what actually failed the most. I'm getting really geeky on you guys. The motors, I never had a motor fail. It was always the motor driver boards that failed, and they were also quite expensive. So.
What, would they just spill soda in them or something?
No, actually, the problem was just they would overheat, they'd get hot, and just the circuits would go bad.
What?
I don't know, poorly designed or what, but I had those controls. Again, they're controlling high voltage for those motors that's varying the speeds and stuff. There's a lot of electronic control going on, and there's a lot more than you would get from like a normal PC logic board or something like that. So those motor controls failed a lot on arcade games. A lot of arcade games had those because they had to compete with Xboxes and PlayStations.
Right, so it's like you got an extra thing, it moves, right?
Yeah, but then if they actually moved the whole thing, the motors weren't what failed. It was the circuits that controlled them because of controlling the higher voltage.
That's interesting.
No, that's
sorry. That was a Chuck E. Cheese tangent. I apologize.
No, I love that stuff. Like this is amazing. I love having you on these because you have these stories.
Yeah, you have a job that a lot of people would really enjoy.
Yeah, it's a great job. I gotta admit. Doesn't pay great. The pay isn't great, but man, it's a fun job.
Yeah, I went to a convention and this guy was just he would every hour he had this CRT hooked up to this I guess you would call it some sort of main machine. And I don't know if this is like the proper way you're supposed to store these or not, but he had various motherboards for different arcade games, and he just took them out of this bubble wrap, put them on there, and just had it exposed so you can see it. And then I would be playing Ninja Turtles at one moment, and then he said, "Okay, time's up." And then he would put in The Simpsons, and it's just these huge cards. They just keep them bubble wrapped.
They were basically the main boards, and the only thing that you'd have to do when you would upgrade if you wanted to change your Simpsons. I've had both Simpsons and TMNT that you just pull out the board, disconnect what they call the JAMIC connector, and they had the same kind of connector, and you could just swap out the boards. It was very common in arcade games back then to just swap the board to change the game. If you've ever been to arcades, I bet you've all seen an arcade game where the side of the cabinet was a different game than what was actually on the marquee.
So they just swapped out the board, had different ROMs on it, and boom, different game.
The upgrade would come with the board and a marquee, and sometimes maybe a control panel if it used slightly different. It wasn't just a joystick and some buttons.
When you were working with arcades, did you ever get any mod chips that you had to install? Because I remember hearing stuff about the Star Wars arcade game when they went from Star Wars to Empire Strikes Back. Stores just bought like a mod chip that overrid a certain like part of the motherboard, and then suddenly it became Empire Strikes Back with ATs and a snow speeder. And I also heard that there were other mod chips for Street Fighter that were custom, and that led to the release of Hyper Street Fighter. Did you ever have something like that?
It was just the EEPROM. You just pop off the EEPROM, the chip that has the actual software on it. And you pop off the EEPROM and pop on a new one. The only EEPROM chips that I've ever traded out was a Pac-Man. The old Pac-Man played slow, and the new chip was actually a CPU and software in one chip. And you could get a new chip. You can buy them easily on the internet. They just call them the fast chip. And it just makes Pac-Man move faster and feels more updated. That's all. That's the only difference. But I've had people tell me that the Pac-Man game was broken because it was running slow. And
no, you just got the original one.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say, well, I can fix that for you, but I have to get the upgrade, and that, $30 online, and pop it in, and you're good to go.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, and I know that, I think that Star Wars game was cool because it was actually running on a vector monitor, if I remember right.
One of my dreams is to buy one of the original sit-down vector Star Wars games for my dad, because he freaks out about one of those every time he sees one. And I've only ever played it emulated on a computer, but there was one time I got to play it for real. I never actually played a Vector Graphics arcade machine, until I went to the Philadelphia Games Convention,
Mm-hmm.
and I was blown away of just how pretty vector graphics are in person. With it just like I played Asteroids, I'm like, wow, this is so much more gorgeous than any other Asteroids I've played. And then I went to play Star Wars, and I could see why my dad had fallen in love with it when he was in school.
Well, it's so intense, and it actually like burns your retinas a little bit.
Right.
Well, and the reason why it's so sharp is because it's not drawing any sort of pixels or dots or anything. It draws the line that the game wants to draw. So even though it's simple polygons and simple lines, they are like super sharp lines.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And those monitors, they're still in demand for repair and stuff because it's hard to buy new monitors, but they're actually not hard to repair at all.
Well, it depends if what fails is typically the flyback transformer, and that's something you can repair pretty easily. But if you need to realign it, realign the electromagnets, that becomes a little bit harder. But most crucially, if the phosphorus layer decays, which it does over time, then you're
screwed basically.
Well, we just got an engineering lesson from Tomer.
Well, and they didn't decay as much as on CRT monitors because it never drove the whole screen. It only drove what you wanted, to display. So it drew the polygons, and a lot of them were not quite black and white, but they'd be like red and white or green and white. So there was it wasn't very hard to line at all, as opposed to color monitors. You've got to line the 3 different colors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is a lot of older CRTs had like color artifacts where you'd see one pixel with a slight reddish hue to its left and a bluish hue to its right. That means that the that the shadow, either the shadow mask is shit, which happened for cheap monitors, or more commonly that it's slightly misaligned.
And I have a Miss Pac-Man Galaga machine right now that all the Ghosts and Miss Pac-Man have a red shadow because the red is slightly off aligned. But on that game it doesn't look too bad. I got a Street Fighter Alpha 3 where one quadrant of the screen all 3 colors come on a line, and that looks bad. And that is very, very hard to line CRTs. But those old rasters didn't have those problems. It was much easier to repair.
Brian.
Well, I always remember I had this one friend who had this, he had his CRT monitor, and he thought he was super cool because he had these really massive stereo speakers on either side of it. And he's like, yeah, but my monitor is purple. I don't understand why it's purple.
Yeah, it totally messes up the gauzing effect or whatever. Somebody said, Brian?
Yeah. Did you see the recent video where a guy gets Quake 1 rendered on a 1950s radar scope?
No, that's awesome.
Yeah. It shows the game runs on a PC that extrapolates the vertexes and the polygons, and he puts them in an algorithm that talks to the radar scope, and it scrambles the radar scope into a fairly poor image, but very discernible polygons and room. You can walk right through it and everything. It was insane
awesome
looking.
That is really awesome. Yeah, I just Googled that. I'll check that out when we're done.
I think Brian has fodder here for a really good podcast, by the way.
Well, I mean, Feely is the whole thing about the arcade industry, is to compete with what people had at home. There had to be something different to put your hands on, whether it's a gun for, on-rail shooter, or we talked about the sit-down cabinets, the raster monitors you didn't have at home. So it's very, very slightly related.
So there was I think it was on Lost Treasures of Gaming podcast, although I'm not sure, where they discussed an arcade cabinet that had quite literally what could only be described as an anvil designed to based on certain game. It just basically smashes against the side of the cabinet to give the game an extra kind of physical, visceral kick to it. And I just found that combination batshit insane and just awesome.
If you ever run across Qbert, what they did on Qbert is they just put a knocker that's from old pinball games in the cabinet. So if Qbert falls off the edge, a split second after he falls, it activates the knocker to give the effect that Qbert fell into the cabinet. And it's really awesome to find a Qbert that has that still working. And I don't have any Cuberts on my route, but there's an arcade in Kansas City where I live called the Up Down that has just tons of classic arcade cabinets, and their Cubert, the knocker, still works, and it's great.
And it's funny in a way that does kind of tie into to what we're talking about, because it again creates kind of like a visceral physical experience, right? So aside from we're talking about feelies and things that are packed in with games, but also if you have these arcade games that provide you with physical feedback, that's actually pretty cool as well.
Well, if we're going to go that route, we might as well mention the kind of early days VR, Amiga-based VR machine things. That's like the ultimate feeling. You basically stand on a platform, you put on this weird headset and a glove, and you walk around in virtual reality. It's crap, but it's it's a feeling, and it's old school. So there you are.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting the ways that you can interpret all of this.
The only 3D, not 3D, it's a lie, but the only VR that really survived in arcades was a cabinet called Global VR 3, and the way it worked is it had a rod coming off the top of the cabinet and then a helmet hanging on that rod. The point of that rod is it held the camera stationary on XY axis, so the game didn't have to take forward, back, left, or right movement into account. It just sensed when you rotated and when you looked up and down, and that's it. And that gave it a very realistic feel when you're looking through the helmet, but the screen you were looking at was actually just a single image screen. It wasn't 3D, but because the movement felt so real, everyone who played it swore they were playing a 3D VR game.
That's pretty sweet.
And that was very hard to repair because the wire harness in that moving helmet rig always broke after the movement would have, when wires move, bend back and forth and back and forth and back and forth all day long, eventually the wires just give out.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, think about it's if you do want to break a wire, that's all you have to do. Or just think of it like a more bendable paper clip. It's the same idea, right? You keep bending it.
Apparently that didn't make sense to the engineers of the game, so us techs had to deal with that.
I felt like it was a very easily fixed that could have been prevented.
Well, for some games that have very little going through a moving joint, they just do a hinge with a wire that turns. I'm not describing this right, but like an axis. What they call it a brush on a moving disc. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that there was so much going through for the VGA signal for the monitor, it wouldn't be practical for that. So they just had basically a VGA cable that went into the monitor.
Yeah, VGA cables are not known for being, super flexible.
The cables are actually incredibly sturdy. It's the connectors that are shit. It's the DB15 connectors. The pins always, get pulled out or they get bent out of shape, and it's really, really easy to get like a mismatched connection. And the funny thing about that is because it's an analog connection, the results are interesting. Like sometimes you would lose all red on your display, or the sync would occasionally fritz out, or all sorts of really, really weird stuff that can happen with analog connections.
Yeah, and that was all happened with that game because of the moving, twisting VGA cable.
Yeah, cool. So, all right, well, if you got another one there, Tomer?
Well, I do have another one. I just wanted to circle back to the Dune soundtrack that I mentioned earlier. So, first thing, a little bragging rights. I have here a mint copy.
Aha!
Correct. And that copy Norman Legg. And beyond that, the second anecdote was a few years back. What happened was this. I guess eBay reseller or whatever, the kind of people that often try to buy like bulk retro stuff from like shops that close down, or like old warehouses that do a clearing sale and that sort of thing. Actually bought the entire stock from an old games and software shop that went out of business, and they found this completely new old stock of a few dozen copies of Dune the Spice Opera soundtrack, and they kind of progressively put them on eBay for what was it, like 2-3 months until they all ran out. And I got my copy for what I consider to be a really good price compared to a lot of what the other ones have sold, and that was 3 digits in US dollars. So it's still a real collector's item, but it was, as far as I'm concerned, it was worth everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if no one has any other games, I have one sort of mainstream one and one esoteric thing to mention.
Go for it.
Right, so the mainstream one is, I only know the CD version, but I think it was the same with the floppy version of Betrayal at Trondor, which is kind of an early, pretty famous or infamous, depending on who you ask, PC RPG from sort of the early mid 90s. And that box, I don't have it here to showcase. It's still in storage at my parents', but that box came with just a ton of supplemental material. It was, first of all, it weighed a ton. The box must have weighed 4 or 5 pounds. It had the CD in it. It had a pretty thick manual. It had 2 maps. One was kind of moderately sized and functional. The other one was just really, really insanely big and highly decorative, and probably intended to be framed and hung on a wall or something. And I don't even remember what else it had. It had just a ton of supplementary material. And the only reason I ever found out about it, because I'm not actually a fan of the game, is because Moby Games, the tried and true game database, back in the day had this thing going where in early days, if you accumulated enough kind of contribution points over a certain span of time, then they just mail you a game from Jim Leonard's collection, a game of your choice from however many options there were. And I picked that one, and when I got it, I had never actually played the game. I just heard about it, but I must have spent a day just poring over all of the supplemental material in the box, because that was, it was not a collector's edition or anything, but it was either intended to be one, or the production company just went insane and just stuck everything they could think of in that box. And that's actually pretty cool, but it's just an example of kind of an early days box with lots and lots and lots of different material included. And the other thing that I want to mention is not actually a Feely, but is something actually pretty esoteric. So, do you guys remember the old games by an old company called Cinemaware?
Yes.
Right. So I imagine at least 2-3 people would nod. So the musician they were predominantly working with is I think he's an American expat living in France, or there was something. He was living in Paris at the time when I actually had any contact with him, and he's called Jim Cuomo, and he wrote the soundtrack for Defender of the Crown and SDI. He's a really, really talented musician in the early days of kind of cinematic gaming, and what happened was he ended up producing an album called Gameplay. Let me link to Discogs here, and that is a collection of Amiga soundtracks from Amiga versions of games that he worked on, superimposed with actual instruments. So you have like real saxophones, real drums for certain tracks. It's a pretty unusual thing, and it's a very early kind of computer game project that took itself computer game music project that took itself pretty seriously. And I actually have a signed copy of that also in storage, which is pretty cool. The musician himself, I contacted him to find out if I have permission to post recordings of the Amiga version of Defender of the Crown on my website, which is still out, by the way, if you're interested. So we ended up swapping mails on occasion, and he mentioned this thing, and I asked him for a copy, and he actually signed it and sent it to me, which was really, really, really nice. He's an incredibly nice guy, and some of these versions are actually pretty interesting. So, I don't know that this is a Feely as such, but it seems like a pretty esoteric kind of game tie-in that's worth mentioning because of how unusual it is. I haven't found a version online that you can play, but I'll try and have a rip out and try and contact Jim again to find out if he's cool with me posting the rips on a website somewhere, just so you can, for historical purposes, obviously.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that just came to mind during the Hangout.
Cool. All right. Well, unless anyone has anything they really, really, really want to throw in there, I guess we should probably start wrapping up.
Oh, you don't want to go for another hour?
We could. Unfortunately, my in-laws are coming over for dinner. So
okay.
Unfortunately, my in-laws are coming over for dinner. Now it's recorded.
We get along very, very well.
Yeah. Not anymore.
You have the clip.
Not after this.
We haven't got you.
Captured forever on YouTube.
Yeah.
All right, so that was awesome, guys. A lot of really cool stuff. I'm glad we got to see. I wasn't sure if people were going to actually pull stuff out, and we got to see a lot of cool stuff. We got to learn.
That was a treat.
Most of my cool shit is still at my parents' side and completely inaccessible from here, which is a crying shame. But
I do have one. I do have one last thing.
Sure.
It's not really a pack-in from anything recently, but I do have with me that Higara mothership that I got from Special Edition. If I could bring that out real quick.
Sure.
Can you repeat the name though? Because I didn't get it.
It's the Higaran mothership from Homeworld.
Oh, right. Cool.
I'll be right back.
Yeah, and that's actually one. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I would say what grabs that, Craig. I do think you won the show and tell section of this podcast.
Definitely.
Craig always wins the show and tell. Last time you brought out a freaking sound blaster.
What did I win? What was so special that I brought out?
How many different things did you have? I mean, when Tomer was talking about that guide, you had it. You pulled it out right there.
Here it is.
You had unopened shirts. You had all the maps. You had all the. What do you mean? What did you win? Come on, man.
And the sad thing is this is nothing. I mean, from the last time, the collection that I used to have that I sold, I would have so much more. So.
It seems like everything we talked about, you had it, man.
Well, let me link you to an album on Flickr of some of the game-related stuff that I've been collecting over the years. I took these images like years and years ago, and most of that stuff is still at my parents' place, just for bragging rights.
If my parents hadn't sold their house, I still have all my stuff, but I threw it out like an idiot.
Yeah, I think a lot of us did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I'll never need that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's just taking up space. Yes, that was like a month before I started the podcast.
Oh.
Yeah, that's rough.
Look at this thing.
You gotta talk so it goes full screen.
Oh, I should have gone over these pictures to begin with, because there's
there's that Dune picture you were talking about, the Dune box you were talking about.
Oh yeah, that particular box is in terrible shape, and the Seventh Guest one is even worse. But I was a kid. But what did I know? But the Star Control 2 stuff, you can see in one of the pictures, everything there, including the star map, the manuals, the backends, all that shit.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna link this in the notes. There's a lot of stuff we talked about in here.
Hey, can you lock Martin full screen so I can see that chip better?
Yes.
We've got Tomer's address now.
Aha.
What?
Now, the thing about this thing is that the USB power cable is super short, so I can't show it to you and turn it on at the same time. I don't have to get extension. But this is probably one of the coolest things I've ever gotten from a video game.
What did it come in?
It came in the special edition Homeworld Remastered box set.
Oh, okay.
and it also came with this amazing art book and this really slick Higara keychain.
Oh, that is really cool.
Yeah, this is a lot of stuff. That was really, really cool. Kind of makes me wish I played the game so I can really, really appreciate just how cool that is.
Well, it's available on Steam.
Hey, if you pre-order Sands of Karak, you get Homeworld Remastered for free.
There you go.
Yeah, but I wouldn't. Like, why would I pre-order the thing if I've never played any of its?
Because it's a prequel, and while you wait for the prequel to come out, you can play the new game.
There you go. Done and done.
That's why you would do it.
Mumble.
Thanks for letting me share that.
Oh, wow. Okay, here's one.
Thanks for letting me share that with you guys.
I forgot about that. I think this game might have been mentioned in at least one podcast. Might have been Sportways of Fam. Oh shit! It's Dark Legions by SSI.
Yeah.
Remember that? So check. Let me link you here. Yeah. Let me link to this particular image. It came with a set of collectible trading cards that mimic the characters in the game. Pretty cool.
Here, let's see. Let me present that.
Wow, Tomer, your collection is pretty impressive.
Yeah, Tomer.
Absolutely.
I am super jealous.
Yeah,
Of course, I'd have nowhere to store it, but that doesn't matter.
that's the tough part, right?
Hey Joe, could you log that screen in for a second?
Yeah, should be showing.
There you go.
Yeah,
Very
that's
nice.
cool. I love all that. Like, all that stuff is just so awesome. Yeah, like, I even wanted to mention, that we were talking about Homeworld. I just wanted to mention the Homeworld manual, I think, is, one of the last great manuals.
Yeah, the manual is actually reprinted in this art book.
And there's so much great background and, the history of Higara, which, it's nice to know, but it's not like you need to know it to play the game, but it just makes the world so much richer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so cool.
It's a really good game as well.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. It's very, very cool.
It's like Archon.
I can't believe you waited so long to play it.
I have one more thing I'll pull out before we go. Hold on.
One more thing. We'll end off with a bang here.
Uh-oh.
Let's see, Craig's rooting around in his closet. I love his like magical closet back there.
Definitely got like a lock of John Romero's hair or something.
I imagine it's like a TARDIS. It's bigger on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. Just reaches in, pulls out something appropriate.
Okay, not a pack-in, not anything related to PC gaming. It's it's Atari 2600, so I think Tomer will get an appreciation out of this. But this is an original cardboard stand-up from the Raiders of the Lost Ark video.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Kick ass. That is amazing.
I've had this thing now for a long time.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
34 years? Yeah.
34 years. Get the hell out of here.
Oh wow, that's pretty amazing.
That's from the year I was born.
Oh
That's from an era of gaming. That's from an era of gaming where we needed art so that we knew what to visualize the square on the screen was.
Yeah, we were talking about that way back at the beginning. It's kind of like it gave you, this is these big blobby pixels. This is what they're supposed to be in your head. Yeah,
that's how we knew the duck was actually a dragon in Adventure.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, exactly. So yeah, guys, thanks so much. So much cool stuff that we got to see during this one. So I guess that'll do. Unless anyone has any other really cool things to show, I don't know. I think we're.
This was great and fun as usual. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So thanks everyone, and I guess next week I'll finally get around to putting out the episode on Sim Tower, which I'm having a lot of fun playing, and I'm going to put out some video on that.
I'll actually, the first time in a long time, I'll be able to send you an email 3 times in a row about a game I played.
Yeah, I was actually impressed. Even in the manual, there's a bunch of information about. I didn't know that it was originally a game that was released in Japan, and then Maxis brought it over, and so there's a lot of cool stuff to talk about Sim Tower. So we're going to do that next time. Yeah, it's a Japanese game.
Save it for the podcast.
Haha, there we go. So it's a teaser. There you go. So everyone stay tuned for next time for Sim Tower. But thanks a lot, you guys, again. Thanks to Trolls, for popping in, even though he was, I thought he was sick, but it turns out he's just hungover. Poor guy.
Potato.
It's all good. I'm not feeling super great myself, so maybe I was a little more low energy this week or this time around than I have been the last times. But either way, it worked out really well. Thanks to various people for coming in, via cars and mobile devices and whatever. It's we live in the future.
Yep.
Indeed. Kept dropping out, but hey.
It worked out. Okay, so
see you later, man.
Yeah, that's that. Thanks everyone, and I will kill the broadcast, and we'll see you all next time for Sim Tower. Bye bye.
Bye everyone.
See you.
Cheers.